January the 4th, two gentlemen took off on a fishing trip into the jungles of Brazil. At 3 a.m., we woke up. At 5:30, we were in Miami, but not without some confusion. We missed our flight from Toronto to Miami because the staffing at the customs was not adequate to handle the number of people. But fortunately, we got a connecting flight, landed in Miami at 5:30. At 1 o'clock that morning, we were in Manaus, totally exhausted. But we did manage to have a good meal, and I had a shot of whiskey. Well, at 6 o'clock we were up, and by 8 o'clock we're in the plane heading for the jungle. Right now we're lifting off Manaus in a easterly direction. We're then going to circle the city, and we'll head for the jungle, going north. Now Manaus is a city with about the same population as Ottawa. This is not a third world country. This is very, very advanced. I was amazed. It was not what I expected at all. And the people there, when they go to the mall, they're not like the people here with the wall marshals. These people dress to the nines. I've never seen so many beautiful women in my life. I still have eye strain because of it. You can see we're now going over Manaus, and you can see the edge of the city. Where it stops, the jungle starts. There isn't really a transition zone to speak of. There's a small town just to the north of Manaus on the river here. We're going to be going over the Amazon. See the Amazon River adjacent to the horizon. Rough at the altitude we're at, so we're going to come up through the clouds to get to some better air and sunshine. We're about 50 miles out from the camp where we're going to be living on a lodge, a floating lodge in absolute luxury. 200 miles from the nearest human beings with electricity. We're getting our first glimpse of the area that we're going to be fishing right now. We're coming in on approach now. In the distance you can see the runway, or lack thereof. The distance of the trees from the tips of the wings appears to be about 20 feet. So these pilots have to really be on their toes. The tribespeople have hacked away the underbrush to create this landing strip, and they maintain it with machetes. Being a pilot, I had a little bit of a concern about the landing because it was pretty wet, and I was concerned about slippage once we touched down, but these boys were great. They had a 5,000-pound payload, including the airplane. Most of the people of the village all came out to welcome us and carry our gear. As you can see, this is not downtown LA. We got out fishing early, and these two fishermen, one's a conservative and one's a liberal, didn't know how they'd make out in the jungle together for a week's time. Now, unfortunately, these pictures were shot from a one-sided perspective. My son was doing the camera work, so we didn't get a lot of shots of him catching fish. But rest assured, he caught more than his fair share. Now, something that is interesting here, that should be noted, is we're fishing in some very, very rough terrain. You can see the laydowns, as they call them, on the bank. And on the right side, that was a 40,000 acre bushfire. Devastated 40,000 acres.
I think it's in South America.
On the other side of the river was jungle.
Stuff like that.
The fishing here is very challenging because you have to be very accurate in your casts. And lures we're using are worth about $40 a piece, so you don't want to lose them. Amazing scenery. Perfect. You notice the top water explosion? That's what these fish are famous for. These peacock bass are supposed to be the toughest fighters pound for pound of any fish.
Oh, nice. Mm-hmm. Nice.
This one here is not what we call a great size, but it's around 8 pounds and around 24, 25 inches long. We caught plenty of these.
Your weight, your measure first. You're down half an inch. You're too high. There. 24, same size as I had roughly then, but there's like, okay. Excellent.
Got to kiss the fish. Thank him for a good fight.
Okay.
You notice the lure is about a quarter the size of the fish. Well, in one case, the tip of my rod flew off, and Caffey, our guide, had to go overboard, or didn't have to go overboard. He volunteered to go overboard and get it. In with the piranhas and the stingrays. He got a good tip that day. Here's another about 26 inches long and around the 8 pound mark.
Yep.
Now these fish are 3-bar peacock bass.
Yep.
You get the name from having 3 vertical bars on their side. You can see them here. The pectoral fins are bright orange. They're just coming out of breeding mode. And once they get done the breeding, they actually are called specks because they lose the 3-bar appearance and they're speckled. You can see the speckles on that one. It's starting to appear.
You're down half an inch. You're too high. There. 24, same size as I had roughly then, but 30 seconds here. No. Okay. Excellent.
I can't recall the name of that fish, but it's prehistoric and it's got teeth like a human.
Excellent.
They're square.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Cappy was an exceptional guide. He went above and beyond the call every day.
No. Not.
We'll have to cut out what I just said.
Yeah, exactly. Something else.
We calculated that we were making minimum of 120 casts an hour. Norman had carpal tunnel problems in the left wrist. My left hand went numb, and we'd have to pause, and I'd drink a beer while I waited for my hand to have the feeling come back in it.
Ha! Nice one. Very nice.
Now, if you looked at the top of those trees, that's about 35 feet high. 6 months earlier, the water was 28 feet up those trees. I don't know where the ants and all the bugs went, but the monkeys, they went to the top of the trees. There's lots of howler monkeys down there. And the birds, of course, went to the top of the trees. But if you look at those trees in the jungle and imagine them underwater and all the fish are in the jungle, that's the reverse of where we're at now. The reason we fish there in January, because that's the low water level. So the fish are more concentrated. Another 3-bar peacock. These are average sized fish. These aren't world record fish at all, but they sure do put up a battle. Oh, these topwater explosions are exciting. There isn't another fish that hits like that. On one occasion, I hooked onto a real big one, and it broke 40-pound fluorocarbon leader. And when I inspected it, there was no abrasion to it. It strictly just pulled it beyond its tensile limit. The break looked like a pigtail.
Just a little
Here
guy.
we go. Here we got a wolffish.
Dogfish, I think.
These are really aerobatic. Norman had his hands full with that one. Then he decided to get even with the conservative and put it over by his feet. That was the extent of his liberal, shall we say, battle. What you'll see here, if you look close, is stingray. The water's got tannin in it, so it's a little brown. You see the dark object is a stingray. This area is just loaded with them. They're one of the more dangerous creatures in the water. They've got a barb and they can be really nasty if you step on them. 2 men went on a fishing trip into the jungles of Brazil, 200 miles from the nearest civilization. The one was a liberal, the other was a conservative. 2 weeks later, I came out of the jungle a little less conservative, and my son came out a little less liberal.